We ran a turbo 2.7 and a 5.3 V8 to 200,000 miles. One wins on torque and fuel, the other has something the new engine can't buy at any price. I'm Dale. Here's what makes this matchup interesting. The little four-cylinder actually makes more torque than the V8, not a typo. Numbers in a minute, and it drinks less fuel doing it. On paper, the modern turbo beats the old small block and the two things truck owners care about most. And it still might not be the one you want at 200,000 miles. Because at that mileage, the question stops being what an engine makes and starts being what it costs to keep alive. Now let me be straight with you before we go one step further, because I won't fake data. The 2.7 turbo came out in 2019. There are very few of them at 200,000 miles anywhere in the country. So what I'm giving you isn't a stack of 200,000 mile teardowns on that engine, it's what I already see failing on them. Plus what the design itself tells me is coming. Judged against a V8 we've got decades of hard data on. I'm judging both the same way. What breaks, what the repair costs, and what's actually left in the engine when the odometer rolls past 200,000. Let's get into it. Let's start with the 2.7, and I want to give it full credit first, because it earns it. GM calls it the TurboMax engine code L3B. 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. Now look at that torque number against the 5.3 V8, which makes 383. The four-cylinder makes more torque than the V8, nearly 50 pound-feet more, and it makes it low in the rev range where you actually use it. Anyone who tells you this engine is gutless has never driven one. And I want to explain why a four-cylinder can out-torque a V8, because it sounds impossible until you understand it. The V8 makes its power the old way displacement. 8 cylinders, 5.3 liters, air and fuel in proportion to size. The 2.7 makes its power by force, feeding a smaller engine with a turbocharger, cramming far more air into each cylinder than atmosphere alone ever could. Boost is what closes the gap, and then some. That's genuinely clever engineering, and it works right up until you start asking what happens to all that hardware at high mileage. It's also more efficient. Real world, owners are reporting 18 to 22 miles per gallon, where the 5.3 lands closer to 16 in town and around 21 on the highway. So you get more twist and better fuel economy at the same time. And here's the part I want to get exactly right, because there's a lot of bad information out there in both directions. The 2.7 is a Doak engine, dual overhead cam. Camshafts up in the head, not a pushrod engine. So it does not have the collapsible hydraulic lifters that collapse and wipe out a camshaft the way they do on the V8s. That specific failure, the one that turns into a $3,000 to $7,000 cam job, is not the failure mode on this engine. But do not let anyone tell you the 2.7 has no cylinder deactivation, because that is flat wrong. It absolutely does. In fact, it was GM's first four-cylinder ever to get active fuel management. It just does it a completely different way. GM calls the Valvetrain Tri-Power, and it works with a sliding camshaft. The cam lobes physically slide sideways on the shaft, and electromechanical actuators pick between 3 different lobe profiles: high lift for full power, low lift for efficiency, and a zero lift profile that shuts cylinders 2 and 3 down entirely under light load. So it's a different mechanism, not an absent one. And that matters at high mileage, because a sliding cam Valvetrain with electromechanical actuators and hydraulic control is a sophisticated piece of machinery with its own ways of going wrong.
Owners do report deactivation-related complaints on these: lugging, hesitation coming back onto power, and oil consumption.
The V8's version of this problem is more expensive when it fails. But anyone selling you the 2.7 as the engine with no deactivation to worry about is telling you something that isn't true. Now the other side. The 2.7 runs direct injection, and it does have cylinder deactivation. Direct injection sprays fuel straight into the cylinder, so nothing washes the back of the intake valves and carbon builds up on them. Owners are hitting that around 80 to 100,000 miles, and the fix is walnut blasting to clean the valves. That's a real service, on a real schedule, that a port-injected engine simply never needs. And it isn't optional maintenance. You can skip carbon on the intake valves chokes airflow, and you'll feel it as rough idle, misfires, and a truck that's lost the crispness it had when it was new. The owner who never has it done doesn't avoid the cost, he just pays it later in drivability and diagnostic time, chasing a problem that was always mechanical. Then there's everything the V8 doesn't have at all: a turbocharger, an intercooler, a high-pressure fuel pump, a wastegate. Every one of those is a system that doesn't exist on a 5.3, and every one of them is another thing that can fail at high mileage. High-pressure fuel pump failures are already showing up on these. So are rough idle and stalling complaints, hard starting and stuttering on startup, boost control codes, and hesitation at low speed. There's a distinct snort-wheeze noise on shutdown that owners report. And there's turbo lag. The V8 just responds. The turbo needs a beat to build boost. Fair warning on years too. The 2019 and 2020 trucks deserve extra scrutiny. That first year had a stack of recalls and below average reliability marks. The engine got meaningfully better from 2022 on, and 2024 picked up a revised 8-speed that's more refined than the earlier trucks. 2021 through 2023 is the sweet spot if you're looking at one. And that pattern isn't unique to this engine first generation. Anything from any manufacturer carries the problems that only show up once real customers put real miles on it. GM sorted a lot of it out. But if you're shopping used and you've got a choice between an early one and a later one at similar money, take the later one every single time. The revisions weren't cosmetic. So the honest picture: strong, efficient, no lifter time bomb, but more systems that can fail, a carbon service the V8 never needs, and not enough 200,000-mile examples yet to say for certain. Real quick, the maintenance that takes either of these engines past 500,000 miles is in my GMC blueprint, links in the description. Now the 5.3, and I'm going to lead with its weakness, because I'm not going to sell you a hero story. The 5.3 has one big, expensive, well-documented problem: cylinder deactivation lifters. On the L84, the 2019 and newer engine, that's dynamic fuel management. On the L83, the 2014 through 2018 engine, it's active fuel management. Either way, the lifters on the deactivated cylinders can collapse, and when one does, it can score the camshaft. That's a $3,000 to $7,000 cam job. And the failures cluster there is a well-known concentration, right around 119,500 miles. So if you own one of these, that's a real number to have in your head. I'm not hiding it. And let me tell you what it actually looks like when it starts, because catching it early is the difference between a manageable bill and a new engine. It begins as a tick on cold start that fades once things warm up, and most owners talk themselves out of worrying about it. Then you get a misfire on one of the deactivated cylinders, 1, 4, 6, or 7. If you act at the tick, you're dealing with lifters. If you wait until the misfire is constant, the cam is usually already scored and the number doubles. That window is worth real money, and it's the whole reason I bring this up on every V8 video I make. Here's the other side, and it's a big one. The 5.3 makes 355 horsepower and 383 pound-feet less torque than the turbo, but it makes it without straining. And on longevity, this engine is proven in a way the 2.7 simply hasn't had time to be. 200,000 miles is routine. Owners regularly report 250 to 300,000 miles with proper maintenance. That's not a forum legend. That's the everyday reality of these engines. I've had them across my bench with the odometer well past 250,000, still holding oil pressure, still pulling clean. The bottom end on a small block is genuinely overbuilt for what a half-ton asks of it, which is why the failures you hear about are almost always in the valvetrain and almost never in the block itself. Fix the valvetrain problem and the engine underneath it will keep going for a very long time. It's also simpler. And let me be precise about what that does and doesn't mean. because this is where a lot of people overstate the case. Pushrod small block architecture, no turbocharger, no intercooler, no wastegate, no charge piping, no boost control system. All of that genuinely does not exist on a 5.3, and every one of those is a system that can't fail on you because it isn't there. What I won't tell you is that the modern 5.3 is a simple old engine, because it isn't. From 2014 on, the Gen V engines run direct injection, same as the turbo, driven by a mechanical high-pressure fuel pump off a lobe on the camshaft, which means the modern V8 gets carbon on the intake valves too, and it needs the same walnut blasting service eventually. Anyone who tells you carbon is a turbo-only problem hasn't looked under a Gen V intake. The turbo has more systems than the V8. That part is true, but the fuel side is the same on both. What the V8 does have is scale. Parts are everywhere, and they're cheap, because GM built millions of these, and every shop in America has torn one down 100 times. That last part matters more than people realize. Think about what that means when something goes wrong. You're not waiting on a specialist. You're not waiting on a back-ordered part from a supplier who makes it for one engine family. You're not hoping the shop has seen this before. Every failure mode on a 5.3 has been diagnosed, documented, and solved 10,000 times over, and that collective knowledge is free to you the moment you need it. Nothing on a spec sheet captures that, and nothing you can buy replaces it. And then there's the version that sidesteps the whole problem, the LM7. The 5.3 from 99 through 2007. No cylinder deactivation at all, and port injection instead of direct, so no lifter bomb, no high-pressure fuel pump, and no carbon on the valves, because fuel washes them clean on every cycle. It's the only genuinely simple engine in this whole conversation. That engine is about as close to bulletproof as a truck V8 gets, and it's the cheapest of any of these to own. No boost, no high-pressure fuel system, no cylinder deactivation, no carbon service, port injection washing the valves clean on every cycle. There is almost nothing on it engineered to fail on a schedule. It gives up power and fuel economy to both of the modern engines here, and it will quietly outlast them for less money than either. If your only goal is the lowest cost per mile over a very long time, that's your answer, and it isn't close. One more thing, the V8 wins outright: heavy towing. Pull a real load up a long grade, and the V8 does it with less effort and less heat than a small turbo engine working hard to make the same power. If you tow heavy, and often, that difference shows up over time. A turbo engine pulling a heavy trailer up a grade is working near the top of its capability, generating boost and heat continuously. And heat is what ages engines and transmissions. The V8 doing the same pull is loafing by comparison. That's not a knock on the turbo, it does the job, it's just that, doing the job easily and doing the job at full effort age two engines very differently over 100,000 miles of towing. So here's the part that decides this, and it's not horsepower, and it's not miles per gallon. At 200,000 miles, three things matter. How many systems can fail, what it costs when one does, and whether anyone near you can actually fix it. Run the V8 through that. It has one major known problem, the deactivation lifters, and that problem has a known solution. You can disable the system before it fails, or you can own a non-deactivation version and never face it at all. One big risk, well understood, with an off-ramp. That word off-ramp is the important one. A known problem with a known fix isn't really a risk anymore, it's a maintenance decision. You either address the deactivation system or you buy a truck that never had it. Either way, you control the outcome. That's a completely different situation from a risk you can only wait and see about. Now run the 2.7 through it. It has more individual failure points: the turbocharger, the intercooler, the wastegate, the boost control system, and a sliding cam valvetrain with electromechanical actuators, none of which exist on a V8. Each one is a smaller risk on its own, but you're stacking a lot of them. And notice that none of those turbo side failures has a clean off-ramp the way the lifter problem does. You can't delete a turbocharger from a truck that needs boost to make its power. You can't remove the sliding cam valvetrain, it's how the engine makes its torque curve. So where the V8's big risk can be engineered away, the 2.7's risks are structural. They're the price of admission for what makes the engine good in the first place. And you carry them for as long as you own it. And here's the one nobody thinks about until they need it. Far fewer technicians have rebuilt one of these 100 times. When you're at 200,000 miles in a small town on a Friday afternoon, the engine every shop knows cold is worth more than the engine with better spec sheet numbers. That's not nostalgia talking. It's the difference between a truck that's back on the road Monday and one that sits waiting on a specialist and a part nobody stocks. That's the thing the new engine can't buy at any price. Decades of proven miles and a repair network that already knows it inside out. Time is the one input engineering can't shortcut. GM can build a better engine on paper in a year. It cannot manufacture 20 years of field data and 100,000 technicians who've already solved every problem it has. The 2.7 will earn that eventually if it holds up. It just hasn't had the chance yet, and you can't buy your way past it. So here's the clear winner, the 5.3 V8. Not because it makes more power, because it doesn't. Not because it's more efficient, because it isn't. It wins because it's proven to 250 and 300,000 miles. It's simple, it's cheap to repair, and everyone can fix it. And the non-deactivation 5.3, the LM7, is the outright champion for cost of ownership. Nothing here touches it. But let me be fair about what the 2.7 wins, because it wins real things. More torque than the V8. Better fuel economy. And it doesn't carry the collapsed lifter-scored camshaft failure that costs V8 owners $3,000 to $7,000. It deactivates cylinders a different way, through the sliding cam, so that particular catastrophic bill isn't on its menu. It's an excellent daily driver and a genuinely good engine. A well-maintained 2022 or newer 2.7 can absolutely reach 200,000 miles, and I'd expect a well-kept one to do it. This isn't a verdict that the turbo is bad, it's a verdict about which engine I'd bet on at high mileage with my own money, knowing what I know about how they're built and who can fix them. So here's your rule as an owner. If you've got the 2.7, stay on top of the carbon buildup and the fuel system service, keep the oil clean for the sake of that sliding cam valvetrain, and watch the boost side, that's where it'll get you. If you've got the 5.3, stay on top of the cylinder deactivation before it costs you a cam job. In both cases, the point isn't fear, it's that each of these engines has one predictable place where the money goes, and knowing which one is yours puts you ahead of almost every other owner on the road. The people who get hurt aren't the ones with the wrong engine. They're the ones who never found out what their engine's weak spot was until the bill showed up. Remember, the Hook 1 wins on torque and fuel, and it still isn't the winner. Torque didn't decide it. What decided it is how many systems can fail, what the repair costs, and who can actually fix it at 200,000 miles. That's the V8. And the non-deactivation 5.3 most of all. If you want the full maintenance playbook for either engine, that's my GMC Blueprint 1 PDF. No mechanic, no lift, links in the description. That's it from me, Dale, 28 years deep.